A new report from the Washington Post reveals Trump-allied attorneys led, quote, a secretive multi-state effort to access voting equipment after the former president's 2020 election loss. The Post obtained emails and other records showing those lawyers directed a team of computer experts to copy sensitive data from election systems in Georgia.
The Post also reports that those Trump allies asked a forensic data firm to access county election systems in 3 battleground states. A lawyer for plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit over the security of Georgia's voting systems calls the scope of the effort, quote, mind-blowing. Washington Post investigative reporter Aaron C. Davis joins us now, one of the journalists who helped break the story. Aaron, good to have you on here. There's, of course, an alarming irony here, right, in that after more than a year of arguing, accusing others of somehow attacking or accessing voting data, from the Italians to the Venezuelans, here you have evidence that Trump allies were doing this. Can you describe how they did this and how widely?
Well, yes, thank you for having me. Obviously, some shocking things here in these documents. The biggest new thing that we did learn is, as you said, that entire hard drives of election system software, and these being election systems used to this day across the state of Georgia and elsewhere, were copied and then shared among a constellation of Trump allies. And if you look back at those early days after the election, it seemed so frenetic. It seemed as almost anybody working or interested in trying to support Trump's ideas were just taking on their own volition to do something. These documents show that, in fact, it was organized, that attorneys, in one case an outside counsel for the Trump campaign, another case Sidney Powell, were directing these computer forensic experts to go into states, and whenever they had the help of a local elections official, to go in there very quickly and copy as much as they possibly could. They did that on a weekend in Michigan. They did that in one day with the blinds closed here in an elections office in South Georgia, and potentially other places we don't know of.
So, Aaron, how did these outside computer experts even have access to these election machine servers?
Well, in the case of Georgia, which is kind of this new one we focus on a lot in the story, a former elections official had told the Post, and we previously reported this, that she'd let in some Trump supporters to try to, prove that in fact this election hadn't worked the way it was supposed to. She didn't believe that Biden should have won. And so she allowed in, it turns out, a person who works in the bail bondsman business, and then he in turn contacted his sources with the Trump campaign, and the emails show that ultimately elections officials and a county clerk down there were receiving information from this computer forensics firm that was in touch with a former national security official who was on Trump's side, and they all worked together to get this team down there. On January 7th, in fact, pardon me, it was the day after January 6th, as DC was just reeling from what had just happened here. There was a team of computer experts driving and flying to Coffee County, Georgia, to obtain elections official information to continue this idea.
Do we know, is there any implication or evidence that there were attempts to manipulate that data in any way?
So that is a big question here going forward. And, while you can understand that back in 2020, there was so little truth to all the things that the conspiracy theories that were being said. I think now we do have to raise and open our minds to the question of how vulnerable is this data going forward. Dominion voting systems, other outside experts say there are accuracy testings before an election, hand counts afterwards that can help verify the outcomes. But there is now a question of what can be done with this election software, in some cases, the entire hard drive of Dominion voting systems. What can be done with that potentially to sabotage future election efforts? And that's something we'll be, of course, looking at.
Yeah. Right, because since there's no centralized oversight, it does appear to be a state-by-state basis, which is a bit alarming. On the one hand, that sort of defended our election integrity by saying that this wasn't centralized, but if you're having these experts being able to go into various states and access this data, it is worrisome. What are the legal implications, and how are these states reacting to this?
Well, there's already a criminal investigation in the Attorney General in Michigan, and the Attorney General there has sought an independent counsel to see if there was a conspiracy along these lines to obtain voting election system information from multiple counties. You almost wonder if there's a parallel process that could now play out in Georgia. In fact, the plaintiffs' attorneys have told us that they will provide this information to the FBI and to criminal investigators. In fact, they haven't even opened up some of it, as we understand, treating it almost as if it's stolen information. And so what happens now criminally in Georgia is a question. Obviously, the civil case is raising these questions of what should Georgia be doing heading into November and beyond to ensure that its election systems are safe.
Yeah.
Aaron C. Davis, thank you so much. Very important reporting here. We'll continue to follow this story. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Records obtained by the newspaper show attorney Sidney Powell sent a forensic data firm to Michigan to copy a rural county's election data. She later helped arrange for the firm to do the same in the Detroit area. We're joined now by Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. Secretary of State Benson, thank you so much for joining us. As the Washington Post reported, state authorities now are investigating alleged improper equipment breaches in your state. What is the status of that investigation right now?
Well, there have been connections made between various attempts to breach our security. I think the bottom line on my end as the state's chief election officer is I can assure everyone that any breach tabulators that were identified have been decommissioned prior to this year's election. So the machines in play for our elections this year are secured. They have not been affected by this. And so the focus really now is building connections between the attempted breaches and the breaches themselves to seek accountability and justice, because this is going to continue. These attempts are going to continue, not just in Michigan, but elsewhere, until we see real consequences for the perpetrators.
That's notable. You're saying you took those machines out of the rotation, in effect, for this upcoming election. Why exactly? Are you concerned that they were tampered with in such a way that might have affected this upcoming vote?
It's possible, and that's why we decommissioned them immediately. And so that's really the consequences of this effort, that there's an attempt to further lies and conspiracy theories, gain access to secure voting machines, and then the taxpayers bear the costs of having to replace those machines with ones we can affirm are secure.
When were you first made aware of this scheme?
Several months ago, actually earlier this year, and but it's been an ongoing effort even back in 2020, when the evolving issues out of Antrim County made it clear that people would attempt then to, as the Washington Post noted, access those materials. And what we realized then back in 2020 was that a lot of times back then, in rural counties in Michigan, folks aren't expecting law enforcement to show up and demand access to voting machines, or people posing as law enforcement, which it was some of the time. So we immediately back then began working with clerks to educate them on the fact that it's illegal in Michigan to turn over secure voting materials to unauthorized parties, and that work has continued over the last few years. But certainly a lot of the coordination of this effort and the fact that it affected many counties in Michigan came to light earlier this year once the investigation stepped up.
The first question that popped into my mind as I was reading this story was, could the copied data have been altered in any way, the tallies in effect, and is there any evidence that there was an attempt to do so?
We certainly think that there were nefarious reasons to get this data, primarily to show some sort of, or attempt to show some sort of malfeasance in our elections, which simply doesn't exist. So in that regard, first, the election results themselves are secure. We have paper ballots in Michigan. We have audits after the fact. The election was certified. That is protected and done. What happens after the fact when tabulators are accessed is oftentimes materials are gained and then misappropriated or used to somehow further lies or conspiracies, as opposed to actually being evidence for anything.
Yeah.
What are you doing to reassure voters as we're now approaching another election cycle that their votes will be counted and legitimate, and this will be a safe and secure election?
Well, three things. I mean, first, again, we're assuring everyone that the machines in play at our elections are secure. They have been secured, and we've got additional protocols and security in place to continue to begin to affirm that. We have audits and paper ballots in Michigan, so our protocols are secure. The election will continue. But secondly, we're seeking justice. When I turned this evidence over to the Attorney General, she's now called for a special prosecutor to ensure there is justice, because these attempts will continue, even if by other individuals, until there's real consequences for those involved. And then finally, reporting this to the Justice Department so that we can ensure that if this is a national trend, we're providing evidence to support national accountability.
Yeah, it's a good point, because we've seen some of the tactics used in 2020 repeated or attempted to be repeated in elections taking place now. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, always good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.